Hey, Amplify You family, Michelle Abraham here, and I am bringing to you another amazing guest today. I have Ariel Vierheller of the Ariel View. You can find her at arielmay.com. You can look her up on Facebook. She is an amazing woman that I found online, and it's really cool. We connected, and we have a similar story. Ariel used to be a marine biologist. She worked really hard in school, got the job of her dreams, and then realized that really wasn't the job of her dreams. For those of you that know me, does that sound familiar? Yes. So we're going to dive in and talk to Ariel's story, talk about Ariel and her story today and this expert interview, and to find out how we can pivot when things aren't going just as we thought life was going to go, and we planned it all out in our head to be our dream life. So Ariel, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So let's dive right back in here. I just kind of laid out kind of the overview, the aerial view, let's call it, your turn, the aerial view of what went down in your life. So let's talk about that. Bring us back to the beginning. What were you aiming to do in your life, and how did things pivot and change from there?
Yeah, so ever since I can remember, I wanted to be a marine biologist. So since I was a little girl, I probably did a lot of self-identification with my name being Ariel. I pretended to be a mermaid pretty much half my childhood. So I always wanted to be a marine biologist. I always had a big passion for marine mammals, dolphins, whales, things like that. And I actually reached a point in my life where I got an internship, and I went to school for psychology, focusing on animal behavior as well as human behavior. It's kind of like a weird background there. But I ended up getting an internship and ultimately getting my dream job. I worked my way up and essentially became an intern, then I kind of created my own position on a boat as a cook and a marine biologist. I kind of like mixed things up there, had never cooked a single thing in my life. Pretended like I could cook in order to get my foot in the door, and was able to do some marine biology work on this boat as I also cooked for the crew. So I kind of created my own position and eventually worked my way up and got the research assistant position, which was essentially the highest I could reach unless I was to own my own nonprofit. So I became a marine biologist, had the dream job, everything I ever wanted. I was studying wild dolphins off the coast of the Bahamas. And it was as good as it sounded. And it was amazing until, and maybe this is where you were leading, until I kind of realized that I couldn't go anywhere else. And everything that I ever wanted, it kind of felt like the rug was pulled out from underneath me. I had everything that I wanted. I had the dream job. I had, an amazing boyfriend or fiance or whatever at the time. I had an amazing house in Florida and things were going great, but I was still very unfulfilled. I knew I wanted to do more, and ultimately I felt very locked down in the current position that I had put myself in.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's amazing. And now that we're talking more too, we have another thing in common. Ariel was my hero in Disney as well. My favorite character in
Yes.
Disney for sure. She is the coolest of the cool. So yes, a mermaid, awesome. I also did want to be a marine biologist too when I was growing up at one point. And then I looked at how much school you had to go to. So I did outdoor recreation instead. It was more fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. But I love that you've done all these cool things, being a marine biologist on a boat, that you just kind of get your foot in the door and like just went for your dreams. And I think that's super cool. Why do you think you were feeling unfulfilled with and feeling like trapped with what you were doing?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things I struggled with, and I think a lot of people struggle with, is kind of attaching their identity to what they achieve. And so you kind of start to view your work and the amount you achieve and all of the like kind of milestones that you hit in your life as your identity, as who you are, and basically as your worth. And so I think I reached a point where I was at the end of the bridge. Like I had nowhere else to go. And that was really stifling for me because I had always been growing and progressing and achieving these new milestones throughout my life. So when I reached a point where I couldn't do that anymore, it was very shocking to me. And I realized that I had very much tied my worth to what it is that I did, because I eventually left that career. And when I left it, I realized that I kind of didn't know who I was anymore. And I had to do a lot of work to kind of pick up the pieces, figure out who I was, what I wanted, and outside of what it is that I was doing.
Cool. Yeah, I can relate to that. And I think a lot of people, I hear you are like the type of person that a lot of my clients are like work with, like someone in that back when you were like unfulfilled, but like had achieved dreams. And that's where a lot of my clients actually work with people that do that. And it's interesting because it seems to be there are so many people in that category where they went after their dreams, achieved it, but there was just something missing, right? And so what were
Hmm.
some of the activities that you did to try to reignite your fire and like kind of claim who you are?
Yeah, so I did a lot of, I guess you could call it inner work. I think that term's a little overused, but I did a lot of inner work. I did a lot of writing things down. I did a lot of questioning. I went to, my friends, my family, my husband, my now husband, and kind of, started asking when they think of me, like, what do they think of? What do I inspire them to do? Like, what do they think of when it comes to like my personality, my characteristics? Like, what are the strongest things that stand out? And I started to just gather these pieces that I had never questioned before,
Mhm.
because I kind of followed the track that I had set for myself when I was probably 6 years old and never actually stepped back and really questioned who I was and what I wanted. So I started asking people, kind of getting I had to do inner work, but I had to reach externally first. So I had to ask people and
Mhm.
then really sit back and really start to process the things that people were telling me, the things that I had never thought about. And I did a lot of journaling, as well as, I guess you could say, general personal development, and started really figuring out who I was without the title.
Mhm. Cool. Did you find that like when you started asking people what are the things that like what do people come to you to ask all the time? What are some things that people were saying about you? Did you find it's actually stuff that you really like to do? Did you have that outcome? Like,
Yeah, so it definitely was. It was a little bit shocking at first, though, because I felt like it was things that had been kind of buried for a long time.
mm,
And a lot of it was just kind of who I was. A lot of it was, people said I was very compassionate. I definitely had, a passion for animals and, sustainability and conservation, which I was exercising. So that stuff was not new to me.
not
But
surprising.
then there was what?
Not surprising then. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But then there were some other things that came up, like that I was able to lead people to ideas that they hadn't thought of before. I was able to help them get a lot of clarity. And I kind of embodied this, I don't want to say leadership, but somewhat of a leadership ability to inspire people.
Mm.
And that was very nice to hear, of course, but it was something that I had never thought about because I was a scientist. So that was something that I realized I really wanted to exercise more,
Mhm.
and I really wanted to kind of dive down that path a little bit more.
Yeah, that's really cool. Oftentimes I hear like people, and I know it's happened for myself too, and you start asking people what it is about you like that they like, or what is it that, you always help with. And it's always things that we do for free without even thinking about it. For me, it's connecting. Like I'm always connecting
Hmm.
people with other people and I was like, but I'm never getting paid for it. But it's like what I love to do, right? And so it's
Yeah.
great that you kind of figured out that same sort of thing. And now that's what you do for people, correct? Like then now you figured out how. So take us from how you went to figuring out what it is that you actually love doing and that you would just do for free all day long. And now how did you turn that into a business?
Yeah. So it kind of goes back a little bit into my marine biology career, where I, many people are surprised to learn that I was a marine biologist. I was, again, studying dolphins, or studying dolphin behavior off the coast of the Bahamas, and it was amazing. But ultimately, I was working in a nonprofit, and I saw kind of two sides of the coin. And this is kind of where I guess my story started. Is one was I saw so many people who had so many good ideas, and they didn't really they weren't really taught that they could go actually take action on these ideas.
Yeah.
So, they had kind of done what I did, right? They, had this idea and maybe were encouraged to do things based on societal standards and, maybe parental expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And here they were, obviously in a similar job as me, doing something that they loved, but they had more that they wanted to do and they didn't believe that they could do it. And they had never been taught that they could actually go try to do it. So I started actually with working with people while I was still a marine biologist. I started working with some of my colleagues, some of my peers, some scientists who had been in the field for 10 to 30 years and had just reached a point in their life where they were still unhappy. And I started kind of coaching them on the side and working with them and helping them develop their ideas and actually, I guess, give them the confidence and the courage that they could actually start trying to execute them outside of what they were doing. So that's where I started. I started with coaching people on getting clear on what it is that they wanted, essentially connecting a little bit deeper to their purpose and then figuring out a way to fulfill those things so they could feel more fulfilled. But the other side of it was the other thing that I saw then was as I was working in this nonprofit, I saw firsthand how these people now were like trying to take action on these things that they wanted to do. And working with all these different people, they all had nonprofits. I saw firsthand how not being able to effectively get the word out about what it is that they were doing, and who, getting in front of the right people, that heavily impacted their funding. It affected the much needed attention that they, needed to continue to get funding. They struggled financially. It took a toll on their stress levels. And ultimately it took a toll then on the confidence that I had helped them establish to go do these things. Then they believed like, well, who am I to do this? Am I even cut out for this? How long can we sustain this organization? They had such good ideas and such a powerful message to share, but they weren't able to actually get it out there, get it out into the world. So like I said, I eventually left the marine biology field. I wanted to do more. And I found that passion for not only helping people with those good ideas develop the courage to fully step into it, but also helping them reach the right audience and essentially market what they had to offer. So, be able to take their experience, be able to take their passion, and then bridge the gap to those who needed to hear it and could benefit from it the most. So long story short, I took my psychology background, my knowledge of copywriting and marketing, because I had learned that through osmosis through my husband, who's an amazing copywriter and marketing strategist. And I started essentially applying it to why people are attracted to certain things and why they buy. So I honed in on organic marketing. I started really, working with people who couldn't necessarily afford to put money into ads. And I started essentially studying the bejesus out of marketing, testing a bunch of strategies, finding what worked best without having to dump money into ads, and then started helping impact-driven businesses so they could have a bigger reach in the marketplace.
I love that. And that's where we also connected too, because that's what I help through podcasting, helping get businesses out so they can make a bigger impact in the world. So we can help them get their message out in a bigger way. And I think that's amazing. That's what you do as well. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on too. So for our podcasters who have this huge, big impact message, any suggestions or ideas of what are, besides podcasting, they have an audience now through podcasting, what are some other ways that they can get their big impact message out there in the world that's working these days?
So a big thing I like to focus on, we're very blessed with the social media world that we live in. So I focus on organic marketing in multiple avenues, including, doing impactful like interviews with people and getting your message out there and reaching different audiences and basically diversifying your audience. But a big thing that I like to focus on is social media, because it has its pros, it has its cons, and I like to amplify the pros. So it's a great place to connect with people, and it's a great place to share your message as well as to educate people. I think we have a lot of messages out in the world today. There's a lot of people, a lot of competing voices for everybody's attention. But when you can inspire people and when you can educate them from a place of authenticity and a place of understanding and compassion, I think you are going to attract the people that you want to reach. So a big thing I focus on is social media and actually using the tools that we have through, live videos and things like that and reaching people in that way as well.
Do you find storytelling is the best way, like on social media, to really come across as authentic and attract the right audience to your message?
It's a great way. Yes, I love storytelling. I also focus a lot on like building authority, building expertise. Everything that I do is based in psychology. That's kind of the science-y nerd in me that comes out a little bit. Storytelling and connecting to people's emotions is absolutely amazing. Other things I do too is, again, I like to, when you can educate people, you kind of establish that authority and that expertise, or that authority positioning. And I think when you can educate people and use your story to inspire people, it's like the perfect mix to get people on board with your mission.
Yeah. And do you think, is there a good combination of the two? Like, what are you suggesting, more story over expertise, or is there like is there some formula that you follow, like a couple of authority pieces, a couple of storytelling pieces? Is there anything that you can suggest to us in that sense in social media?
Yeah. So when it comes to content, and this is content, whether it's social media, whether it's on your website, blog posts, even podcast episodes, excuse me, things along those lines. I actually have a little bit of a formula that I like to use, and it's 5 different types of content. So the first is educational content, so educate. And I like that to be about 50%, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you have a message and essentially are trying to get people on board with your mission, but also to eventually buy from you, right? Purchase from you. Educational content is so important because it positions you as the expert.
Mm-hmm.
So I do about 50% educational content. Then I have demonstrational content, or demonstrate. And that's where you're basically demonstrating the results of your offer, the results of your services, the results of what you do, whether it's testimonials, whether it's your own story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about 15 to 20%. And then storytelling kind of goes into both of those, honestly, because I kind of spread storytelling amongst all of them.
You can do it all within storytelling instead of shouting out on social media, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You can do it as a story instead of shouting out on social media.
Yes, exactly. I think when you can tie a story into anything, again, you're tapping into people's emotions. You're getting them, emotionally connected to you and your experience. And so I think storytelling is so important to kind of sprinkle into all of these. So there's educate, there's demonstrate, there's motivate, which is where, just the motivational pieces, the inspiring. If you can get people to, inspired to take action, again, you kind of put yourself in that leadership position. And then there's engagement, where you engage with people. You really get them to engage back with you. And then the final piece of content that I encourage is promoting, promoting your stuff, promoting what you have to offer, and showing what you have to offer to the world.
I love it. Thank you for breaking down into 5 categories for us. So I think that works on all the different platforms, or do you specifically do that on Facebook? Maybe not so much on Instagram, or is it on all the channels?
So the two social media platforms that I focus on the most are Facebook and Instagram. But I have clients that use this on LinkedIn. Some even, again, podcasting, things along those lines. So it kind of goes across all your different, platforms in which you could, relay a message. But the ones I focus on most are Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, cool. I was just thinking in my head, I was like, oh yeah, that'd be great to use that formula actually when you're planning out your own podcasting episodes too, really like thinking about it. Like you're talking about, stories, and then educating, and then motivating. So it's like you could almost do episodes kind of in that sequence too, which is kind of neat. So, yeah, good idea. I like that idea. And I love how it's like, everyone that you were working with was like out there living like that American dream. And then all of a sudden one day it was like, this American dream is not for me. Same thing happened to me in our Canadian dream. Same sort of dream we follow, right? The go to school, get the car, kids, get the job of your dreams, and then what? Like you stay there in your car, like, hello, that's not very fun. and I think the second part of the fulfillment thing is also, I think there's a big need for us to make an impact in the world, and I think that's probably part of the fulfillment that's missing when you're not, when you're just working a job that's not making a difference in the world. Although it sounds like your job was kind of making a difference. Research for dolphins, like that's kind of making a difference in the world, but it wasn't necessarily your mission yourself, right? So what's your mission? Yeah.
I was gonna say it's still a part of it. I do want to have my own marine conservation organization. That's my own nonprofit that I'm working on starting as well. But because I have kind of a different perspective, I have the marketing perspective, I have the purpose and the fulfillment perspective. I wanted to develop those things in my own character first before I run a nonprofit, so I can kind of fill the gap that I think is out there right now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So now you're able to run a profitable, or like a nonprofit, but in like a marketing sense, so that it does make a difference. It does make the bigger difference. Yes. It's meant to, instead of just being this idea that's sitting there not getting the funding and the attention it needs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's great. I love that. So tell us a little bit about the Ariel View. I love the name of what you're doing, and I think that's so cool. Like that it ties in with your name, and I just like how you came up with that. So tell us what that is.
Yeah, so all kudos to my husband. He's the one that came up with that. And again, as it started was I was really helping people get basically like a third party perspective on their life, because that's exactly what I had to do in order to figure out what it is that I wanted. So that's where I started. I started coaching people in that way, helping people get that third party perspective, get clarity around what it is that they wanted, and then how to take that idea and go bring it to the masses. So the aerial view is essentially that. It's being able to get that third party perspective and then have that self-awareness to not only understand the impact that you can have in the world, but also the impact that, you know, the way that you think and the things that you do, and the contributions that you make have an impact on yourself and your own fulfillment.
For sure. And how cool for those of you listening that you're starting your own business, personal branding, how cool is it if you can kind of build your framework within like your name of your business and the name of like your concept, and has your own personal name in it too. Like that's very cool.
Yes.
Like it's nicely laid out. So it's like you got the ideas, you've got the framework for it, and like the name just says it all right there. That's when you know you're
Exactly.
onto
It was
something in
perfect.
marketing, right? Hang on.
Right.
And it's memorable, right? So, you know, some really key things here for people that are listening that are just starting their podcast or their branding, you know, really name things so that they're memorable. And, you know, that would be the perfect name for podcast too, the aerial view. Although we're looking with podcasting is like the aerial view would be like a great subtitle, and then being literal in the
Yes.
title of, of it. So yeah, I love it. I think that's great. So Ariel, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we leave, do you have any last words for people that are out there looking at starting their personal brand, their podcasts? They have this big mission, passion to get everything out there in the world. Any suggestions for them as to how they should do that in the best efficient way?
Yeah, so I think the first thing that you need to do is get clarity on what it is that you want. And then once you have an idea, just kind of start taking action, because, you know, you've heard the cliche that, you know, clarity comes from action. And I think so many people get hung up on having the perfect idea, you know, again, kind of going back to that achievement mindset, having that full, you know, fully focused, fully brought to their mind idea before they take any action. And it kind of holds a lot of people back. And that's something that I have to work a lot of people through. So I think once you can get an idea, you can really get that clarity on what it is that you want. You just kind of start taking little baby steps and you see what comes of it. And then you can kind of iterate and shift and pivot as needed.
Awesome. And now for the other spectrum of things, someone who is in the middle of their so-called dream life and realizing that, holy crap, this is not exactly what I signed up for. What's the best steps to pivot from there?
Yeah, so admittedly, it's very, very hard once you've put a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into something that, you know, you thought was going to be your life. It's very difficult to detach from that. So I think the first thing there is realizing that if you want to pivot, if you want to do something different, that it's not a reflection of, you know, you being a bad person. It's not a reflection of you not having your crap together. It's simply, it's human and it's natural. And, you know, we are all just kind of learning as we go here. And I think there's kind of this idea that everybody has it all figured out. And I don't think anybody does. You were people that you thought you had it all figured out. And then it kind of, again, feels like the rug was pulled out from under you. Just realize that it's not a reflection of who you are. It's not a reflection of how your life is going to look. It's just a matter of you need to listen to that kind of calling and start to follow it a little bit.
Yeah, good point. And, you know, the other thing I think is scary for people is that they're going to lose relationships, friendships, family members that, you know, thought that they saw them as this person doing this thing. Well, the ones, when you do pivot and you do actually start following your dreams, not only are you going to attract more people into your world, but I think you're also going to have the right people in your world. And if they're not, if they can't, if you're friends, family, whatever, cannot pivot and still love you in a different world and you're following your dreams, then that perhaps that's not a relationship that's meant for you. You know,
Totally
I
agree.
keep that in mind. Like, people are going to still love you. And I think people get hung up on the idea that, but I was supposed to be a scientist and, you know, this was what I worked hard for, right? But now I'm a life coach, and like, what does that mean? And are people still going to love me for who I am, right? Yes. They're still going to love you no matter what you're doing.
Yep.
And especially more so because you're going to be happier and chasing your dreams, right? Yeah,
Yep.
that's awesome. Any last words, Ariel? Where can we find you? Where can we work with you? What are you offering?
Yeah. Yeah. So right now, the main thing that I focus on is helping essentially coaches and consultants, because again, that's kind of, where I have a heart for in those types of businesses. So I work with coaches and consultants, and I help them attract their dream clients and essentially grow their impact-driven business to 6 figures. So with that, that's what I'm focusing on. And you can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/the Ariel View 1 and Instagram.com/the Ariel View 1 as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being with us, Ariel. And we'll let everyone know when you get a podcast up and running too, and we can follow you on there as
Absolutely.
well. You got the good knowledge for it.
You're my girl.
Awesome. Yeah, I just love what you're doing. And I thank you for giving us this knowledge of people who are, even the podcasters that have gone down one podcasting route and figured out this is not the topic that's really resonating anymore. Don't be afraid to stop and pivot and change your mind what you're doing, as long as you're following your heart and loving the life that you live. And no matter whose dream it is, it should be your dream, not the American or the Canadian dream like we've all been conditioned to do, right? And we are both products of those. We have pivoted from that American Canadian dream in one direction, and now much happier in life in another direction. So it can happen, and I hope you listen to Ariel's advice here, because I think it's brilliant. So thank you, Ariel, for being with us today, and I hope to have you on again in the future.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Michelle.
You're welcome.